Now, some people on our roundtable tonight. Ari Melber, of course, MSNBC's chief legal correspondent. Ruth Marcus, deputy editorial director of the Washington Post, also a columnist for the Post. Jason Johnson is a politics editor for The Root and now an MSNBC political analyst. And Alex Eisenstadt is a reporter for Politico. Ashley Parker's with the Washington Times. I want to go with Ashley Parker. You got some news of the Washington Post. You got some news.
Yeah, well, a couple things. One thing that was interesting, and right before this actual news broke, which was obviously a bombshell, I was talking to White House aides and people close to them, and they had basically been saying that the White House, the president, was not worried about the blowback from firing Comey last week. He was not even worried about the news that he had basically disclosed highly classified information to the Russians. But the Comey memos were something that really concerned them because they realized that it could open them up to legal jeopardy. And so what you're seeing tonight is sort of the realization of their worst fears in their nightmares.
Let me go to Jason. You've got some news too. I want to get it all on the table tonight.
Well, I talked to some of my sources at the FBI. They talked about Mueller's relationship with Comey. They're not just in the foxhole together. They're friends.
Yeah,
they're golfing and dinner buddies. And Mueller actually recommended Comey for the job. So this is not a good look for President Trump. It may be good for American democracy, but this is someone who is both personally and ideologically and constitutionally invested in investigation, and he's not going to be influenced by anything this president.
So it's optimistic, Ruth, that we're going to get some memos to put in the newspaper pretty soon.
I'm pretty optimistic about that.
We're going to see them in print.
Well, there's potential. I'm getting a little blowback here, so I'm going to move that. There's a little bit of a potential wrinkle here because there's some suggestion, not from the White House, but from legal experts, that there's a question of executive privilege and which executive privilege lasts even after you've left. So will the president assert executive privilege?
In regard to what? The memos kept by the FBI?
To block the memos from being released and to block Comey from testifying. I'm not saying...
But you can't block... if it's in Comey's mind, what happened in his conversation with the president, how can you deny him his right to free speech?
You can say that that is covered by the privilege of his,
Who's going to enforce that?
Well,
you think the Supreme Court would actually back up the president keeping a secret like that?
I think it becomes an assertion of privilege, and then
okay, let's try Ari. We've got a legal expert here.
Yeah.
You and I know a lot, but we'll get an expert here. Ari, do you think there'd be any executive privilege credibility in such a case?
That argument's unlikely to attach to investigative materials or contemporaneous corroborating evidence that is offered by the FBI, and at least in a proper forum, if there is testimony being provided from, in this case, a former official, although we know presidents and both parties like to test executive privilege to the max. Chris, the other big point here is, I think the headline tonight, the biggest headline is, the system is working. We were talking over the last week about the system being tested, and it's working. Rod Rosenstein is a political appointee of President Donald Trump and a career prosecutor. Jeff Sessions was a politician before he became the Attorney General. But let's give some credit. I think it's merited where deserved, even if it came under pressure. The Attorney General, for all the criticism of him, did recuse. Now, he undid some of that at times, but it is his recusal that left this ball in Rod Rosenstein's court. And he now, I think, has done the right thing in putting forward this special counsel, who is itself a good pick. Robert Mueller, as everyone's described, a real nonpartisan, long-standing law enforcement official. We have no reason here as a country, as journalists, as patriots, at this juncture to think this is anything other than what it looks like, which is now an independent chance to get to the bottom of the facts. If you believe in Donald Trump and you like Donald Trump and you hope that there's nothing wrong underneath the hood of that car, then great, that's good news. And if you like America and you want this system to now go forward, that's good news. And for people who are hoping to get something political out of this, I would argue it's bad news, because I don't think Robert Mueller, a Bush appointee, is going to look to damage anyone. I would strenuously disagree with what my colleague Jason there was saying about the friendship. I don't think anything about Robert Mueller's background suggests that he goes in and looks at facts based on his friends or his enemies. I think he looks for facts. And so I think the system is working tonight because we now have a person in charge who can go look at where the facts are, regardless of who likes them.
Alex, your thoughts about this? Because I've been saying this on this show for months now. I'm very proud of knowing a lot of the print reporters who write for the A sections of their newspapers, not columnists with opinions, left, right, or center, but factual news reporters are Trump's worst enemy, and he made that clear, and public servants. Because I remember from the Watergate days, what really brought down Nixon was a conservative Democrat, Sam Ervin, a moderate Republican named Howard Baker, a hanging judge named by Republicans, John Sirica, and a very cautiously, culturally conservative Democrat who was Peter Rodino, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. A bunch of lefties didn't bring down Richard Nixon.
Well, look, it's been remarkable to watch because every evening, every day, there is a major revelation. There's a major story, if not multiple stories that are coming out about this White House. And you're really seeing this White House really veering at this point. They are just enveloped in chaos at the worst possible moment. The president is about to leave on a trip overseas. And yes, print reporters are making the difference as it relates to this case and as it relates to this White House.
Let me ask you about that. Well, let's have some fun here. Ruth, and then Jason, you're sitting here with me. He's going over to the warm, embracing arms of a former friend, Bibi Netanyahu, who now has to prove the pride of his country by saying, you've been giving away our intel, Mossad's intel. I think most countries in the Middle East, including Israel, are very proud of their intelligence services. Certainly Jordan is. And to give away our jewels.
Oh, and by the way, that Western Wall, actually, channeling Bibi Netanyahu.
Go into that issue.
It is in Israel. That was sort of adding, this was not a good week for the Netanyahu-Trump relationship. It's looking a little bit more like...
Well, give me the geography, because I know East Jerusalem is in dispute, but the Western Wall part is not. This is the territory that is the most disputed because it is the most holy territory for, 2 or 3 religions, and so every inch of it matters. But the notion that an administration would suggest that the Western Wall is not part of Israel is a very explosive suggestion, blown up, in fact, by UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. Yeah, well, you have a split-level living over there, too, which makes it really complicated with the Dome of the Rock. Anyway, I've been over there. I love Jerusalem. Anyway, Jason, this is a lot going on here. And one of the things going on is the stock market plummeting. I would think, loving the Marxist analysis of everything, which is economics, I think that this, giving a special prosecutor this task, gets it off the books of the Senate and lets the Senate and House go back to what Republicans like to do, cut taxes for well-off people.
Exactly.
And if they can get back to that business and deregulating and the things they like to do, it's going to get the market back up again.
Yes.
We'll see tomorrow.
That's the political wise decision that's happened here. You hand it over to Mueller, who's got an investment in making sure he does a long, thorough case. He's going to be started from the beginning, and the Republicans can get back to their agenda, and
which is cutting taxes for rich people.
Exactly. And should Mueller come out with something in a year, they can all throw up their hands and say, hey, look, we let the process work the way it was supposed to.
Ari, can we have split decision making? Can we really compartmentalize? I think the Republicans hope they can, because if they don't pursue their agenda and pay back those people that voted for them and the rich people that may not have voted for them, they're going to lose this country's economy. This economy is everything for Trump, I believe. As long as it's going up, he's going up. He's staying. The minute it starts to go down, I'm not sure he's going to have the popularity with the working guys out there, working women.
Yeah, I think the politics of that makes sense. And Chris, you covered the Clinton era when everyone talked about the, quote, criminalization of politics. That was the concern, that just normal politics, horse trading and debating was somehow being criminalized. Lately, we've had something else. We've had the investigative nature of law enforcement hanging over both nominees and all of this stuff. And then we've had a very unusual approach by the president here. Let's not forget, the politics are that Donald Trump probably made Donald Trump's life harder over the past 2 weeks than any other force. I don't know whether he'll see it that way. I don't know whether his aides will, weigh in on him. Chris, I'm wondering what you think of this very unusual short statement that came out from the president, not in tweet form here, a measured statement in response tonight saying he expects to be vindicated and he'll leave it at that. But Donald Trump is the person who changed the game here. We know that Rod Rosenstein 2 weeks ago was not in favor of a special counsel and a Russia probe and where all that goes. So to your point about the politics in the Senate and the House where Republicans have the majority and want to get back to governing, sure. I think they want to get back to governing. They'd like to make this investigation at least be on a quiet, separate track, and they're hoping perhaps that the president will finally join them in that, because the last 2 weeks have shown what does Trump pushback look like and who is it good for, not Donald Trump.
You know what I think? I think there's a wonderful clash of personalities here. We can never figure out each other very well, let alone ourselves, but we try to understand ourselves. Trump knows who Trump is. Let me go to Ashley on this. Trump knows who Trump is. He's He's all over the place. He's peripatetic. Every second's a brand new place of life and a brand new experience, a brand new existence. A guy like Rod Rosenstein is a good guy, knows his job, and he does it. They're very programmatic. They do their job step by step. Same with Comey. Keeps notes after meeting. He probably keeps regular hours. He probably gets home, has a regular life. He probably plays golf and does all the normal things. Trump can't understand a guy like Comey any more than Comey can be Trump. But Trump is now confronted with bureaucrats in Washington who are not dazzling billionaires, but they get up every day and see a service that's performing at a moderate income for their country, and they tend to do it. And Trump doesn't know how to deal with guys like that because he's never met anybody like that. Just a thought.
I mean, that's exactly right. One of the things that his aides and people close to him were sort of expressing is that the reason he is so angry and frustrated and raging in recent weeks is that he basically feels out of control. There are all of these things he can't control. As you said, he's used to sort of trying to get through the day, get through the minute, get through the hour. He's not thinking about a long-term strategy of, let's say you put a health care bill, for instance, in the House. Can it actually then pass the Senate? Or, what does it actually mean if I urge my FBI director to drop a charge against or drop an investigation against General Flynn? That's not the way he thinks, and he is running up against this bureaucracy of Washington. And as you know, everyone always comes to D.C. saying they're going to change it, and while he's certainly upended things, these same rules do apply, and that's what he's bumping up against.
Yeah, Alex, last thought to you quickly. There is a Gulliver's Travels aspect to this. He comes to Washington with a lot of people that aren't billionaires. They can bring him down.
Yeah, look, and we're really going to get a sense of what this president is made of, if he's going to be able to survive this, because, look, this White House is in pure crisis damage control mode, and we're going to see what happens with this Mueller investigation. It's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be able to, the president will be able to push his very ambitious agenda while all this is playing out. I think a lot of Republicans around town have their doubts right now about that.
Ruth, you know the culture of this city, and you know the bureaucrats. It's a negative word. People like George Wallace ran against the pointy-headed bureaucrats with their attaché cases with their peanut butter sandwiches in it, remember?
Yeah.
It's easy to make fun of people that work every day, but they're going to do their job.
They are going to do their jobs. But I do think that it's probably wrong to think that now we have this special counsel named, so this can die down and we don't have to pay attention to it for a year while this is going on. What do you
mean? Fred Hyatt's writing that editorial right now. What do you mean? I don't expect your paper to die down for the Washington Post.
It was written before I left the office. It looked really good. But Congress has a role here that's separate from the role of prosecutors, which is to get to the bottom of what happened, not as a criminal matter, but as a intelligence matter and a national security matter. What happened in this investigation? They can't give up their role either.
It's hard to consume all this as quickly as we do, but we do chug-a-lug these news these nights. They all break at 5:30 at night. Everybody knows now. It's like thunder clapping here. Jason Johnson, Ruth Marcus, Ashley Parker, Ari Melber, and Alex Eisenstadt. Let me finish tonight.